The rain fell steadily in New Chicago, turning the neon-lit streets into a shimmering kaleidoscope of colors. The city buzzed with life. Hovercars zipped through the air, holographic advertisements flickered on towering buildings, and aliens of all shapes and sizes mingled with humans. It was an ordinary evening for most, but not for Ethan Harper. At 16 years old, Ethan had learned to navigate this chaotic world while carrying dreams far bigger than his small apartment could contain. Ethan worked part-time at Fix-It Tech, a repair shop tucked away in one of the quieter corners of the city. His boss often teased him about his overactive imagination, saying that Ethan spent more time daydreaming about space exploration than fixing broken gadgets. But Ethan didn't mind. He loved tinkering with machines almost as much as he loved imagining what lay beyond Earth's atmosphere. Still, tonight wasn't about dreaming. It was about surviving another long shift and getting home before curfew. As Ethan walked down the damp sidewalk, his jacket pulled tightly around him against the chill, something caught his eye under the glow of a flickering street lamp. A figure sat hunched there, barely visible beneath layers of tattered cloth. Her face was hidden by shadows, but her frail frame and weathered hands told a story of hardship. She looked up briefly, revealing piercing eyes that seemed too wise for someone living on the streets. Most people passed by without a second glance. Some even sneered or muttered under their breath. Aliens, who made up nearly half the population of New Chicago, were especially dismissive. To them, charity was a foreign concept, a relic of humanity's primitive past. A group of 3 tourists, their skin shimmering like liquid silver, stopped nearby and pointed at the beggar woman. One of them laughed, a sound like tinkling glass. "Look at this," said the tallest alien, his voice dripping with mockery. A human wasting time on someone so insignificant. How quaint. His companions joined in, their laughter echoing off the wet pavement. Ethan felt a pang of anger, but forced himself to ignore them. He'd grown used to such comments over the years. Humans were often seen as inferior by many alien species, viewed as weak and overly sentimental. But Ethan didn't care what they thought. Deep down, he believed kindness mattered, no matter how small the gesture. He approached the beggar cautiously, unsure if she would welcome his presence. Kneeling beside her, he held out the last bit of credits on his card. A meager amount, but enough to buy a hot meal. "Here," he said softly. "It's not much, but I hope it helps." The woman looked at him, her gaze sharp and unyielding. For a moment, Ethan thought she might refuse, but then she nodded slowly and took the card. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. There was something strange about her tone, almost regal, but Ethan dismissed it as exhaustion playing tricks on his mind. Behind him, the aliens continued to jeer. "Pathetic," one exclaimed. "Does he really think throwing away credits will change anything? What a waste." Ethan clenched his fists but kept walking. He knew better than to engage with them. Instead, he focused on the warmth spreading through his chest. Helping someone, even in a small way, always gave him a sense of purpose. As he turned the corner, he glanced back one last time. The beggar woman was still sitting there, watching him with those piercing eyes. Something about her expression lingered in his mind, though he couldn't quite put his finger on why. By the time Ethan reached his apartment building, the rain had soaked through his clothes, leaving him shivering. He trudged upstairs, dropped his bag on the floor, and collapsed onto the couch. Outside, the city lights twinkled like distant stars, reminding him of the vast universe waiting to be explored. Little did he know, his encounter with the beggar woman would soon catapult him into a journey far greater than anything he'd ever imagined. For now, however, Ethan drifted off to sleep, oblivious to the fact that his simple act of kindness had set events in motion that would ripple across galaxies. Somewhere out there, whispers of his actions traveled faster than light, reaching ears both curious and critical. And among those listening was someone who understood the true weight of what Ethan had done. Unbeknownst to him, the beggar woman wasn't just another faceless soul lost in the chaos of New Chicago. She carried secrets that could alter the course of history, and Ethan's role in it was only beginning. The next morning, Ethan woke up to the sound of rain tapping gently against his window. He groaned, rolled over, and reached for his alarm clock, only to realize it hadn't gone off. His eyes snapped open as he checked the time. 7:15 a.m. He was late. Ethan scrambled out of bed, throwing on a clean shirt and grabbing his bag. As he rushed toward the door, something unusual caught his eye. On his cluttered bedside table sat an object that definitely hadn't been there the night before. It was sleek, metallic, and unlike anything he'd ever seen. The device was about the size of a small book, with smooth edges and faintly glowing patterns etched into its surface. It hummed softly, almost like it was alive. "What the?" Ethan muttered, picking it up cautiously. The moment his fingers touched it, the device emitted a soft pulse of light, startling him. He nearly dropped it but managed to steady his grip. For a second, nothing happened. Then, with a quiet whir, the top of the device split open, projecting a shimmering hologram into the air above it. The hologram displayed swirling stars, galaxies spinning lazily in vibrant hues of blue, green, and gold. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He'd seen similar projections in documentaries about space exploration, but this felt different, more real, more intricate. Among the celestial patterns, words began to form, written in glowing script that seemed to float effortlessly. "Gratitude will guide you." Ethan stared at the message, his heart pounding. What did it mean? And where had this thing come from? His mind raced through possibilities. Had someone slipped it into his room while he slept? Or had the beggar woman left it behind? Before he could dwell on it further, his stomach growled loudly, reminding him that breakfast and being late for work were far more pressing concerns. Reluctantly, he placed the device back on the table and hurried out the door, promising himself he'd investigate later. At Fix-It Tech, Ethan found himself distracted all day. Every time there was a lull between customers, his thoughts drifted back to the mysterious device. Was it some kind of alien technology? If so, why give it to him? Humans rarely interacted with advanced gadgets unless they were scavenged or sold illegally on the black market. This felt personal. During his lunch break, Ethan decided to do some digging. He pulled out his tablet and started searching for information about strange devices appearing overnight. Most results led to conspiracy theories or hoaxes, but one article caught his attention. It described a rare phenomenon known as gratitude artifacts, supposedly gifted by benevolent extraterrestrials to individuals who performed acts of kindness. According to legend, these artifacts served as keys to unlock hidden opportunities, or even destinies. Ethan chuckled nervously. "Yeah, right," he muttered under his breath. Still, the idea stuck with him. Could it be true? Had his encounter with the beggar woman somehow triggered this bizarre chain of events? When he returned home that evening, the device was exactly where he'd left it. This time, however, it reacted immediately when he approached. The holographic projection reappeared, brighter and more detailed than before. The swirling stars formed constellations Ethan didn't recognize, each one pulsating rhythmically. Suddenly, a new image emerged, a map of sorts, showing coordinates and symbols he couldn't decipher. "Okay, this is officially weird," Ethan said aloud, rubbing his temples. He grabbed his tablet again and tried scanning the symbols into a translation app. To his surprise, the app recognized some of them as belonging to ancient Velith script, a language associated with one of the most powerful alien empires in the galaxy. His heart skipped a beat. The Velith Empire. That couldn't be a coincidence. Everyone knew the Veliths were notoriously private, rarely interacting with humans unless absolutely necessary. Why would their script appear on a device given to him? As Ethan continued studying the hologram, a knock at the door startled him. He quickly turned off the device and shoved it into a drawer before answering. Standing outside was his neighbor, Mrs. Patel, holding a plate of steaming dumplings. "I saw you rushing out earlier, and thought you might need something warm after your shift," she said with a warm smile. "You've been working so hard lately." Ethan accepted the food gratefully, though his mind was still preoccupied. "Thanks, Mrs. Puttle. You're too kind." She waved him off. "Nonsense. Kindness costs nothing, my boy. Now eat up and take care of yourself." Her words echoed in Ethan's mind long after she left. Kindness costs nothing. It was ironic, considering how much trouble his simple act of generosity had caused. Between the mocking aliens, the mysterious device, and now the connection to the Valeth Empire, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was brewing, and he was smack in the middle of it. Later that night, unable to sleep, Ethan retrieved the device from the drawer and stared at it. The glowing patterns seemed to pulse in sync with his heartbeat, as if the object itself were alive. Hesitant but curious, he pressed his palm against its surface. Instantly, the hologram expanded, filling the entire room with light. The constellations shifted, forming a single sentence in bold letters. "Your journey begins tomorrow." Ethan's jaw dropped. Tomorrow? What journey? And where would it lead? Questions swirled in his mind, but no answers came. All he knew was that his life, once predictable and mundane, had taken a sharp turn into the unknown. Unbeknownst to Ethan, news of his actions had already spread beyond Earth. Across the galaxy, whispers of a human boy who showed compassion without hesitation reached the ears of influential figures. Some dismissed it as trivial gossip, while others saw potential. Among those intrigued was Queen Erindra herself, whose curiosity about humanity had grown stronger since her brief encounter with Ethan. For now, Ethan remained oblivious to the cosmic ripple effect his kindness had created. But as dawn broke over New Chicago, casting golden light across the rain-soaked streets, he couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. Whatever awaited him, he knew one thing for certain: his life would never be the same again. The next morning, Ethan woke up to an unusual sight outside his apartment window. Overcars filled the sky above New Chicago, their engines humming louder than usual. Normally, such activity wouldn't have raised an eyebrow. After all, the city was always bustling with alien visitors. But today felt different. There were too many ships hovering in formation, and they seemed to be circling a specific area nearby. Ethan's curiosity got the better of him. He grabbed his jacket and stepped outside, only to find a crowd gathering at the edge of his street. Aliens of every shape and size had descended upon the neighborhood, their glowing eyes scanning the surroundings with palpable interest. Some carried recording devices, capturing footage of everything around them. Others whispered excitedly in languages Ethan couldn't understand, their tones ranging from intrigue to outright mocking. "What's going on?" Ethan asked a human bystander standing near him. "No idea," the man replied, shaking his head. "They started showing up early this morning. Says something about you?" "Me?" Ethan blinked in disbelief. "Why would aliens care about me?" Before the man could respond, a group of towering Valeth guards pushed through the crowd, clearing a path for someone important. The Valeths were known for their regal appearance. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, their skin shimmering like liquid silver under the sunlight. Their presence alone commanded respect, and the crowd immediately fell silent as they approached. Behind the guards walked Zixar, a prominent ambassador from the Valeth Empire. His crimson robes flowed gracefully behind him, and his voice boomed across the street when he spoke. "We seek the human boy named Ethan Harper." Ethan froze, his heart pounding in his chest. Every pair of eyes turned toward him, including those of the aliens who had laughed at him just days ago. He swallowed hard before stepping forward, trying to appear braver than he felt. "Oh, that's me." Zixar studied him with piercing golden eyes, his expression unreadable. "You are the one responsible for aiding the beggar woman 2 nights prior." "Yes," Ethan replied cautiously, "but I don't see how that's relevant." A ripple of laughter spread through the crowd, though it quickly died down when Zixar shot a sharp glare at the offenders. "Relevant?" You humans truly lack perspective. His tone dripped with disdain. Do you even comprehend the significance of your actions? Or rather, the insignificance? Ethan clenched his fists but forced himself to stay calm. I just did what I thought was right. That's all. And therein lies the absurdity, Zixar exclaimed, turning to address the crowd. This primitive creature believes altruism holds value without reward. Tell me, human, do you not realize how futile your efforts are in the grand scheme of things? The crowd erupted into murmurs, some nodding in agreement while others snickered openly. Ethan felt heat rising to his cheeks, but instead of lashing out, he met Zixar's gaze steadily. Maybe helping someone doesn't change the universe, he said quietly, but it changes them. Isn't that worth something? For a moment, Zixar looked taken aback. Then his lips curled into a sneer. Sentimental nonsense. Your species is doomed to remain irrelevant if you cling to such childish ideals. As Zixar continued berating him, Ethan noticed movement in the corner of his eye. A smaller figure emerged from the shadows. A familiar face. It was the beggar woman from the other night, her tattered cloak replaced by elegant garments adorned with intricate patterns. Her presence silenced the crowd instantly, and even Zixar straightened his posture, bowing slightly in deference. My queen, Zixar said, his voice suddenly respectful. Forgive my intrusion. Queen Erindra nodded, her piercing gaze sweeping over the assembled beings. When her eyes landed on Ethan, she smiled faintly. Ambassador Zixar speaks boldly, does he not? Yet his words reveal ignorance, not insight. Zixar stiffened, clearly uncomfortable. My apologies, Your Majesty. I merely sought to ridicule a gesture of compassion. Erindra interrupted, her tone sharp yet composed. Tell me, Ambassador, why should we judge kindness by its utility? Is it not the act itself that defines us? Zixar stammered, unable to form a coherent response. Satisfied, Erindra turned her attention back to Ethan. Young human, your actions have sparked intrigue across the galaxy. Many wonder why one so small dared to defy convention. Do you understand why? Ethan shook his head, overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events. Not really. I just wanted to help. Erindra's smile widened ever so slightly. That simplicity is precisely why you intrigue us. In a universe driven by power and ambition, your choice stands apart. But know this, curiosity has consequences. By drawing our attention, you have opened doors you may not yet be prepared to walk through. Her words sent a chill down Ethan's spine. Doors. What did she mean? Before he could ask, Erindra raised her hand, signaling the crowd to disperse. Enough spectacle for today. Let us retreat and reflect. With that, she turned and walked away, her entourage following closely behind. Zixar lingered for a moment, glaring at Ethan with barely concealed irritation before departing as well. The crowd slowly dispersed, leaving Ethan standing alone amidst the chaos. Later that evening, Ethan sat in his room, staring at the mysterious device once again. News of the day's events had spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of New Chicago and beyond. Social media platforms buzzed with theories about Ethan's connection to the Valiths, with some hailing him as a hero and others dismissing him as a fool. Alien reporters camped outside his building, eager to capture any glimpse of the human sensation. Despite the commotion, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was looming on the horizon. Queen Erindra's cryptic warning echoed in his mind. Curiosity has consequences. What exactly had he gotten himself into? He picked up the device, which now pulsed gently in his hands. The holographic projection reappeared, displaying the same map of constellations he'd seen before. This time, however, new symbols began to emerge, forming a message. Choose wisely. Ethan frowned. Choose what? And why did everyone seem to expect so much from him? He wasn't special. He was just a kid from New Chicago who happened to stop and help someone in need. Or was there more to it? His thoughts were interrupted by another knock at the door. Reluctantly, He set the device aside and answered it, finding Mrs. Patel waiting with another plate of food. "I heard about what happened today," she said softly. "Are you okay?" Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Honestly, I'm not sure. Everything's moving so fast, and I don't know what's coming next." Mrs. Patel placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. Just remember, whatever choices lie ahead, trust yourself. You've already shown you have a good heart." Her words brought a small measure of comfort, but Ethan knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Across the galaxy, debates raged about the implications of a human earning the favor of the Valith Queen. Some saw potential allies. Others viewed Ethan as a threat to the status quo. Among them, factions began plotting moves to either support or sabotage his rise. Unbeknownst to Ethan, the stage was being set for trials far greater than anything he'd faced before. But for now, he remained focused on the present, clinging to the belief that kindness, even in the smallest forms, could make a difference. And perhaps in doing so, he might prove the skeptics wrong. The days following Queen Arindra's visit were a whirlwind of activity for Ethan. Reporters, alien dignitaries, and curious onlookers continued to swarm his apartment building, eager to catch a glimpse of the human who had captured the attention of one of the most powerful figures in the galaxy. Despite the chaos, Ethan tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy. He went to work at Fix-It Tech, though customers now gawked openly as he repaired gadgets, whispering about how that boy helped the beggar woman, or speculating Heather he'd been secretly working for aliens all along. But no matter how hard he tried to focus on everyday life, Ethan couldn't ignore the growing sense that something monumental was about to happen. The mysterious device sat on his bedside table, its glow faint but steady, as if waiting patiently for him to make a decision. Each night, before bed, Ethan stared at it, wondering what choice he was supposed to make, and what consequences might follow. One evening, as dusk painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, there was another knock at Ethan's door. This time, instead of Mrs. Patel with her comforting dumplings, it was Ambassador Zixar. The Valith ambassador stood tall and imposing in the dim hallway, his crimson robes shimmering under the flickering fluorescent lights. His expression was unreadable, though Ethan detected a hint of reluctance in his golden eyes. "May I come in?" Zixar asked, his voice clipped but surprisingly polite. Ethan hesitated. After their last encounter, he wasn't sure he wanted to invite Zixar into his small apartment, but curiosity got the better of him. "Sure," he said finally, stepping aside. Zixar entered cautiously, glancing around the cluttered room with mild disdain. His gaze landed on the glowing device sitting on the table. "I see you still possess the artifact." "It's not exactly something I can return," Ethan replied dryly. "Besides, I don't even know where it came from." Zixar raised an eyebrow. "You truly are ignorant of its origins." Ethan crossed his arms. "Yeah, pretty much. Care to enlighten me?" For a moment, Zixar looked conflicted, as if debating whether to share information that might compromise protocol. Finally, he sighed. "Very well. That device is known as a Pathfinder key. It is a relic of the Valith Empire, created to identify individuals worthy of unique opportunities." "Unique opportunities," Ethan echoed skeptically. "Like what? A free trip to space?" Zixar ignored the sarcasm. "More than that. The key selects those who exhibit qualities deemed valuable by our queen, qualities such as compassion, resilience, and integrity. You have demonstrated these traits, albeit unintentionally." Ethan blinked, processing the information. "So, because I helped someone, I get what? A pat on the back from royalty?" "No," Zixar said sharply. "You misunderstand. The key does not reward trivial acts of charity. It seeks potential to influence, to lead, to inspire change. And now that you have drawn the Queen's attention, you must decide. Will you embrace this path or reject it?" Ethan frowned. "What happens if I say no?" Zixar's expression darkened. Then the key will deactivate, and you will return to your ordinary life. However, be warned, once the galaxy learns of your refusal, you may find yourself ostracized, or worse. Many will see it as an insult to the Empire. And if I say yes, Ethan pressed, you will undergo trials designed to test your worthiness, Zixar explained. Success grants access to privileges beyond your wildest dreams. Failure. He paused, letting the implication hang in the air. Failure means never seeing Earth again. Ethan's stomach churned. Everything felt surreal, like he'd stumbled into the plot of a sci-fi movie. Yet here he was, standing face to face with a literal alien ambassador, discussing intergalactic trials and cosmic destinies. Before he could respond, Zixar added, "Consider carefully, human. This is not a choice to take lightly. We will return tomorrow evening for your answer." With that, the ambassador turned and left, leaving Ethan alone with his thoughts and the glowing device. That night, sleep eluded Ethan. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying Zixar's words in his mind. What would it mean to leave Earth behind? To step into a world so vast and unfamiliar? Could he really handle whatever challenges awaited him? His thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock at the window. Startled, Ethan sat up and peered outside. There, hovering just beyond the glass, was Queen Erindra herself. She floated gracefully onto his fire escape, her elegant robes shimmering in the moonlight. "I apologize for intruding," she said softly, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Her presence filled the room, commanding respect without intimidation. "I wish to speak with you privately." Ethan nodded numbly, too awestruck to protest. "Of course, Your Majesty." Erindra studied him for a moment, her piercing gaze assessing yet kind. "You must have many questions." "Just one," Ethan admitted. "Why me? Why does any of this matter?" She smiled faintly. "Because kindness is rare in the universe, especially when offered without expectation of reward. In disguising myself as a beggar, I sought to observe the hearts of those I encountered. Most passed by, indifferent or dismissive. Some mocked my plight. But you stopped. Not out of obligation, but because it was the right thing to do." Ethan shifted uncomfortably. It wasn't anything special. Anyone could have done it. "Ah, but they didn't," Erindra countered gently. "That is the difference. Humanity often doubts its own value, believing itself inferior to other species. Yet within your frailty lies immense strength, the capacity to care, to hope, to dream. These are qualities we admire, qualities we wish to nurture." Her words resonated deeply, stirring something within Ethan. For years, he'd felt overshadowed by the advanced civilizations surrounding him, convinced that humans were destined to remain second-class citizens in a galaxy dominated by aliens. But hearing Erindra speak made him realize that maybe, just maybe, humanity had more to offer than he'd ever imagined. "What happens if I accept?" Ethan asked quietly. "You will join us aboard the Valeth flagship," Erindra replied. "There you will face trials designed to challenge your spirit, intellect, and resolve. Should you succeed, you will earn a place among the stars, a position of honor and responsibility. And if I fail?" Erindra's smile faded slightly. "Failure has its price. But know this, courage is measured not by victory, but by perseverance. Even in defeat, you will inspire others to strive for greatness." Ethan took a deep breath, weighing his options. Staying on Earth meant safety, familiarity, and a predictable future. Accepting Erindra's offer meant stepping into the unknown, risking everything for a chance to prove himself, not just to the galaxy, but to himself. Finally, he looked up, meeting her gaze squarely. "I'll do it. I'll take the trials." Erindra nodded approvingly. "A wise choice, Ethan Harper. Prepare yourself. Tomorrow, your journey begins." As she departed, Ethan felt a surge of determination. Whatever lay ahead, he was ready. For the first time in his life, He understood the true weight of his actions and the limitless possibilities they represented. Outside, the stars twinkled brightly, as if cheering him on. Across the galaxy, whispers of his decision spread rapidly, sparking both admiration and resentment. Little did Ethan know, his choice would soon ignite a chain reaction that would alter the course of history, for better or worse. And somewhere in the depths of space, a council of powerful beings watched closely, waiting to see whether this unassuming human boy could rise to meet the challenges of destiny. The next morning, Ethan woke up feeling as though he'd been thrust into a dream, or perhaps a nightmare. The events of the previous night still lingered in his mind like fragments of a vivid story. Queen Arindra's visit, her words of encouragement, and the weight of his decision weighed heavily on him. He glanced at the glowing Pathfinder key sitting on his bedside table, its light pulsing rhythmically, as if urging him to prepare for what lay ahead. As promised, Zixar arrived that evening with a contingent of Valeth guards. Their presence transformed Ethan's small apartment into an alien embassy of sorts, filling the space with an air of formality and tension. Zixar wasted no time. "Are you prepared, human?" Ethan nodded, trying to mask his nerves. "I'm ready." "Good," Zixar replied curtly. "Follow me." With that, Ethan stepped outside for what might be the last time as a resident of Earth. A sleek hovercraft awaited them, its surface gleaming under the city lights. Ethan climbed aboard, taking one final look at New Chicago before the vehicle ascended into the sky. Below, crowds of curious onlookers watched as the craft disappeared into the clouds, their faces illuminated by the neon glow of the city. The journey to the Valeth flagship was unlike anything Ethan had ever experienced. The hovercraft docked onto a massive spacecraft orbiting Earth, which dwarfed even the largest human-made vessels. As Ethan stepped inside, he was greeted by a breathtaking sight. Towering corridors lined with crystalline walls, holographic displays floating in midair, and aliens of all species moving about with purpose. The hum of advanced technology filled the air, blending seamlessly with the soft murmur of interstellar diplomacy. Queen Arindra awaited him in the central chamber, her regal presence commanding immediate respect. She stood beside a circular platform surrounded by shimmering panels displaying constellations and ancient symbols. "Welcome, Ethan Harper," she said warmly. "You stand at the threshold of your destiny. Are you prepared to face the trials?" Ethan swallowed hard but managed to nod. "Yes, Your Majesty." Arindra gestured toward the platform. "Step forward." As Ethan approached, the floor beneath him shifted, revealing intricate patterns that glowed brighter with each step. Suddenly, the room dissolved around him, replaced by an immersive simulation of a dense jungle planet. Towering trees stretched toward the sky, their leaves casting dappled shadows on the forest floor. Strange creatures chirped and scurried in the distance, while vines hung low, swaying gently in the breeze. A holographic figure materialized beside him, a Valeth guide dressed in ceremonial armor. "Trial 1. Resolve," the guide announced. "Your task is simple yet challenging. Navigate this terrain and retrieve the artifact hidden within. Beware, this world is alive, and it will test your courage." Without further explanation, the guide vanished, leaving Ethan alone in the simulated environment. Heart pounding, Ethan began his trek through the jungle. Every step felt surreal, as if the simulation was designed to heighten his senses. The air smelled earthy, the ground squelched beneath his boots, and the sounds of wildlife echoed eerily around him. It didn't take long for obstacles to appear. A pack of snarling, wolf-like creatures emerged from the underbrush, their eyes glowing with predatory hunger. Ethan froze, unsure how to react. Then, remembering his limited combat training from school simulations, he grabbed a fallen branch and brandished it defensively. To his surprise, the creatures hesitated, seemingly wary of his defiance. Taking advantage of the moment, Ethan backed away slowly until they lost interest and retreated into the shadows. The first trial tested more than just physical strength. It challenged Ethan's ability to think quickly and remain calm under pressure. After hours of navigating treacherous terrain, solving environmental puzzles, and confronting fearsome beasts, Ethan finally reached the artifact, a glowing crystal embedded in the heart of a massive tree. As soon as he touched it, the jungle dissolved, returning him to the Valeth chamber. "Well done," Erindra said, her voice tinged with approval. But there are more trials to come. Over the next several days, Ethan faced increasingly complex challenges. Each trial pushed him to his limits, testing not only his bravery, but also his intelligence, creativity, and capacity for empathy. In Trial 2, Unity, Ethan found himself stranded on a barren desert planet alongside representatives from 3 warring alien factions. His task was to broker peace between them using nothing but his words and wit. At first, the aliens dismissed him outright, mocking his lack of authority. But Ethan refused to give up. By listening carefully to their grievances and finding common ground, he managed to forge an uneasy truce, a feat that earned both admiration and grudging respect from the participants. Trial 3. Ingenuity required Ethan to repair a malfunctioning starship engine using tools and materials unfamiliar to him. With no prior experience working on alien tech, Ethan relied on logic and intuition. He dismantled components, studied their functions, and pieced them back together in innovative ways. When the engine roared to life, the observing engineers applauded, clearly impressed by his problem-solving skills. Despite his successes, Ethan wasn't immune to failure. In Trial 4, Sacrifice, he was forced to choose between saving a group of stranded colonists or retrieving a valuable energy core needed to power the Valeth fleet. Torn between duty and morality, Ethan chose to save the colonists, knowing full well that it might cost him dearly. Though the decision resulted in a temporary setback, it reinforced his reputation as someone who prioritized life over material gain. Throughout the trials, Ethan gained unexpected allies. Zixer, initially dismissive and condescending, began to see glimpses of potential in the young human. During Trial 5, Leadership, where Ethan had to coordinate a team of mismatched aliens to complete a dangerous mission, Zixer joined the effort reluctantly, but eventually offered guidance when the group faltered. By the end of the trial, the ambassador's attitude softened slightly, though he remained guarded. Other participants grew to admire Ethan's determination and authenticity. Even those who had mocked him earlier now watched with curiosity, wondering if this unassuming boy could truly rise to greatness. News of his progress spread across the galaxy, sparking debates among scholars, politicians, and ordinary citizens alike. Some hailed him as proof of humanity's untapped potential. Others saw him as a threat to established hierarchies. By the time Ethan completed the 5th trial, he felt drained yet exhilarated. Each challenge had stripped away layers of doubt, replacing them with newfound confidence. For the first time in his life, Ethan realized he wasn't just fighting for himself. He was proving that kindness, resilience, and ingenuity transcended species and borders. Yet, as Queen Erindra reminded him, the hardest trials were still to come. Somewhere in the depths of the Valeth flagship, whispers of dissent brewed. Not everyone believed a human deserved such recognition, and some would stop at nothing to ensure Ethan's failure. Unbeknownst to him, betrayal loomed on the horizon, a final test that would push Ethan to confront not only external enemies, but also his deepest fears. Little did he know, the true measure of his worthiness was yet to be revealed. And so, with resolve burning brightly in his chest, Ethan prepared to face whatever came next. The Valeth flagship buzzed with anticipation as Ethan prepared for the 6th trial. Word had spread throughout the galaxy about the human boy who defied expectations, earning both admiration and resentment in equal measure. For every alien who saw potential in Ethan, there was another who viewed him as a threat to the established order. A reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness could ripple outward, challenging centuries-old traditions. Ethan, however, remained focused. Each trial had pushed him further than he thought possible, testing not only his abilities but also his character. He'd faced danger, solved impossible problems, and united unlikely allies, all while proving that humanity's greatest strength lay in its capacity for compassion and ingenuity. But as Queen Erindra had warned him, the final trials would demand more than skill or courage. They would test his integrity and expose hidden enemies. Trial 6. Trust. When Ethan entered the chamber for the 6th trial, he found himself standing on a vast, barren plain under an endless gray sky. The air was cold, carrying a faint metallic tang. Before him stood 5 figures, their faces obscured by hoods. One of them stepped forward, revealing glowing blue eyes beneath the shadow of their cloak. "Welcome, Ethan Harper," the figure said in a deep, resonant voice. "This is Trial 6. Trust. Your task is simple. You must choose one ally among these individuals to assist you in retrieving the Starheart crystal, hidden deep within this realm. However, be warned, not all are trustworthy." Ethan glanced at the hooded figures, each radiating an aura of mystery. One seemed calm and composed, another restless and fidgety. A third exuded confidence, while the fourth appeared hesitant. The fifth remained completely still, their presence almost unnerving. "Choose wisely," the guide continued. "Your decision will determine your..." Ethan hesitated. How could he possibly know whom to trust? After a moment of deliberation, he approached the calm figure, whose steady demeanor reminded him of Queen Erindra. "I'll work with you," he said firmly. The figure nodded, lowering their hood to reveal Calith, a high-ranking advisor from the Vailith court. Known for his cunning intellect and ruthless ambition, Calith was both respected and feared across the empire. His piercing gaze locked onto Ethan's, and a sly smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. "An interesting choice, human," Calith remarked. "Let us see how far your instincts carry you." With that, the simulation began. The two set off across the desolate landscape, navigating treacherous terrain filled with jagged cliffs, shifting sands, and sudden storms. Along the way, they encountered traps designed to separate them, collapsing bridges, illusions meant to sow doubt, and cryptic riddles that required teamwork to solve. At first, Calith proved helpful, offering insights and strategies that complemented Ethan's resourcefulness. But as they neared the location of the Starheart crystal, cracks began to show in their partnership. During a particularly tense moment, when Ethan suggested taking a riskier but faster route, Calith snapped. "You presume to lead me." Calith sneered. "A mere human, giving orders to a Vailith noble. Pathetic." Ethan clenched his fists but kept his composure. "I'm not trying to lead you. I'm just suggesting we work together to get through this." Calith scoffed. "Work together? You misunderstand, boy. This trial is not about cooperation. It's about survival. And I intend to survive, no matter the cost." Before Ethan could respond, Calith activated a hidden device, triggering a trap that sent Ethan tumbling into a pit below. As Ethan scrambled to climb out, Calith loomed over him, holding the now-retrieved Starheart crystal triumphantly. "You should have chosen someone else," Calith said coldly. "Perhaps then you might have stood a chance." With that, the advisor vanished, leaving Ethan stranded in the abyss. Darkness closed in around him, and for a moment, despair threatened to overwhelm him. Had he truly misjudged Calith so badly? But then, something stirred within Ethan, a spark of defiance. He refused to let betrayal define him. Using tools scavenged from the earlier trials, he constructed a makeshift grappling hook and scaled the walls of the pit. When he emerged, battered but determined, the simulation dissolved, returning him to the safety of the Vailith chamber. Queen Erindra awaited him, her expression unreadable. "You survived Calith's treachery," she observed. "Impressive." Ethan wiped sweat from his brow. "He betrayed me. Why didn't anyone warn me?" "Because trust must be earned, not guaranteed," Erindra replied gently. Calith fears what you represent, a shift in power dynamics, a challenge to tradition. His actions were predictable, though unfortunate. Zixar, who had been observing silently, stepped forward. Calith has always resented outsiders. He views your rise as a threat to the Empire's stability. Ethan frowned. So what happens now? Does he win? No, Irindra said firmly. Betrayal does not go unpunished. However, your ability to overcome such adversity speaks volumes about your resilience. The final trial awaits. Are you ready? Ethan took a deep breath, steeling himself for whatever came next. I am. Trial 7. Legacy. The seventh and final trial transported Ethan to a breathtaking vista. A planet bathed in golden light, its surface dotted with crystalline structures that hummed softly as if alive. In the distance stood a massive obelisk, pulsating with energy. Surrounding it were holographic projections of key moments from Ethan's journey. Helping the Beggar woman, repairing the starship engine, uniting warring factions, and surviving Calith's betrayal. A voice echoed across the landscape, ancient and wise. Trial 7. Legacy. To claim your place among the stars, you must define the mark you wish to leave upon the universe. Choose wisely, for your decision will shape not only your destiny, but the destinies of countless others. Ethan approached the obelisk cautiously. As he drew closer, 3 options appeared before him, each represented by a glowing symbol. Power. Rule alongside the Valith Empire, wielding authority to enforce peace and order. Unity. Forge alliances between species, fostering cooperation and mutual understanding. Hope. Inspire future generations to believe in the power of kindness and perseverance. For a long moment, Ethan hesitated. Each option carried weight, promising rewards as well as challenges. Power offered control but risked corruption. Unity demanded constant negotiation and compromise. Hope, while noble, seemed intangible, a gamble on ideals rather than tangible results. Then he remembered something Queen Irindra had said during their first meeting. Courage is measured not by victory, but by perseverance. It wasn't about choosing the path of least resistance. It was about staying true to himself. Reaching out, Ethan touched the symbol for hope. The obelisk erupted in radiant light, bathing the entire landscape in warmth. The holograms shifted, showing visions of a brighter future, humans and aliens working side by side, inspired by Ethan's story to embrace compassion and collaboration. When the light faded, Ethan found himself back in the Valith chamber, surrounded by cheers and applause. Queen Irindra smiled proudly. You have chosen well, Ethan Harper. Your legacy will endure, guiding countless souls toward a better tomorrow. Even Zixar offered a rare nod of approval, his golden eyes reflecting newfound respect. Perhaps humanity is not so primitive after all. As for Calith, his betrayal had not gone unnoticed. Summoned before the queen, he faced consequences for his actions, but Ethan requested leniency, believing redemption was possible even for those who erred. With the trials complete, Ethan stood tall, no longer the uncertain boy who once doubted his place in the universe. He had proven that kindness, resilience, and hope could transcend boundaries, inspiring change on a galactic scale. And somewhere beyond the stars, whispers of Ethan Harper's name spread like wildfire, igniting a movement that would reshape the cosmos forever. The aftermath of the trials marked a turning point not only for Ethan Harper, but also for humanity as a whole. News of his triumph spread like wildfire across the galaxy, carried by interstellar broadcasts, and whispered among alien species who had once dismissed humans as insignificant. The image of a young boy from Earth standing alongside Queen Irindra became an emblem of hope, a symbol that even the smallest acts of kindness could ripple outward, creating waves of change in a universe often driven by power and ambition. Ethan returned to New Chicago shortly after completing the final trial, though returning felt like an understatement. His quiet life was no longer possible. Reporters camped outside his apartment building day and night, eager to capture glimpses of the human ambassador. Aliens flocked to the city, some seeking to congratulate him, others curious to understand what made him so special. For the first time in history, Earth found itself at the center of galactic attention, and Ethan bore the weight of representing his entire species. A new role. Queen Erindra granted Ethan honorary citizenship in the Valith Empire, along with a formal title, Ambassador of Humanity. It was a role unlike any other, designed to bridge the gap between Earth and the stars. Through this position, Ethan would advocate for interstellar diplomacy, technological advancement, and mutual understanding between humans and aliens. At first, the responsibilities overwhelmed him. Diplomatic meetings stretched late into the night. Debates over treaties tested his patience, and navigating cultural differences proved challenging. Yet Ethan approached every task with determination, drawing on lessons learned during the trials. He remembered how unity required listening, how ingenuity demanded creativity, and how hope inspired action. Slowly but surely, he began to make progress. One of his earliest accomplishments came when he brokered a trade agreement between Earth and several key alien factions. In exchange for sharing advanced agricultural techniques developed by human scientists, Earth received access to clean energy technology that promised to revolutionize global infrastructure. The deal sparked a wave of optimism, proving that cooperation could benefit all parties involved. But Ethan didn't stop there. Recognizing humanity's potential to contribute to the galaxy, he launched initiatives aimed at fostering collaboration. Under his guidance, Earth established its first interstellar research hub, where scientists from various species worked together to tackle universal challenges, climate restoration, medical breakthroughs, and sustainable space exploration. These efforts earned Earth recognition as a rising force in the cosmos, silencing skeptics who had long doubted humanity's capabilities. Changing perceptions. As Ethan's influence grew, so did the perception of humans among alien species. Once viewed as primitive and irrelevant, humans were now seen as innovative problem solvers with hearts full of compassion. Stories of Ethan's journeying inspired countless beings across the galaxy, reminding them of the value of empathy and resilience. Even Sixar, who had initially mocked Ethan's ideals, became one of his staunchest supporters, advocating for greater inclusion of humanity in intergalactic affairs. Caliph, however, remained a complicated figure. Though punished for his betrayal, he retained his position within the Valith court, albeit under close supervision. To everyone's surprise, Ethan extended an olive branch, inviting Caliph to participate in diplomatic discussions. At first, the advisor resisted, wary of working alongside someone he'd tried to undermine. Over time, however, Caliph began to see the merit in Ethan's approach. Their relationship evolved from animosity to reluctant respect, culminating in moments of genuine partnership. Despite these successes, Ethan faced criticism from both sides. Some humans accused him of prioritizing alien interests over Earth's needs, while certain alien factions questioned whether humanity truly deserved its newfound prominence. Each accusation stung, but Ethan refused to let negativity deter him. Instead, he used these challenges as opportunities to reinforce his message. True greatness came not from domination or exclusion, but from embracing diversity and fostering connection. A lasting impact. Years passed, and Ethan's legacy continued to grow. His story inspired generations of humans to dream bigger, reach farther, and believe in their ability to shape the future. Schools across Earth taught lessons about his journey, emphasizing the importance of kindness, perseverance, and courage. Statues of Ethan were erected in cities worldwide, not as monuments to ego, but as reminders of what ordinary people could achieve when they dared to be extraordinary. Beyond Earth, Ethan's influence reshaped galactic politics. The concept of hope diplomacy, rooted in his decision to prioritize compassion over power, gained traction among leaders of various species. Alliances formed based on shared values rather than strategic convenience, leading to unprecedented levels of peace and prosperity. Even Queen Erindra acknowledged the profound impact Ethan had made. During a ceremonial banquet held aboard the Valith flagship, she raised a glass in his honor. Ethan Harper has shown us that strength is not measured by titles or weapons, but by the choices we make and the lives we touch. May his legacy remind us all of the boundless possibilities that arise when we choose to trust, to unite, and to hope. As the crowd erupted into applause, Ethan stood quietly, humbled by the moment. He knew his work was far from finished. The universe was vast, and there would always be challenges to overcome. But he also knew he wasn't alone. Countless allies, both human and alien, stood ready to support him, united by a shared vision of a better tomorrow. Looking to the stars, on a crisp autumn evening, Ethan found himself back where it all began, the streets of New Chicago. Rain drizzled softly, reflecting the glow of neon lights. He walked slowly, savoring the familiarity of his hometown, despite how much it had changed. Hovercars zipped overhead, and holographic advertisements flickered against towering skyscrapers. Yet amidst the chaos, Ethan felt a sense of calm. He paused beneath a street lamp, recalling the night he encountered the beggar woman. That single act of kindness had set everything in motion, transforming not only his life, but the lives of countless others. As he gazed up at the stars twinkling above, Ethan smiled faintly. Somewhere out there, beyond the reaches of Earth's atmosphere, lay infinite possibilities waiting to be explored. For now, Ethan remained grounded, content to continue building bridges between worlds. But deep down, he knew his journey was far from over. The universe still held mysteries to uncover, challenges to face, and dreams to chase. And as long as he kept his heart open to the power of kindness, he believed anything was possible. In the end, Ethan Harper's legacy wasn't defined by titles or achievements. It was defined by the simple truth that one person, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, could spark a chain reaction capable of changing the course of history. Across galaxies, whispers of his name endured, inspiring others to follow in his footsteps.